So now we're going to go ahead and look at 2.9. Now 2.9 is a much, much easier section. 2.9 is going to be inequalities. We're going to be looking at inequalities. We're first going to learn how to graph these and then how to write our answer in what's called interval notation. So when we go to graph these on a number line, strictly greater than, strictly less than, these are going to get parentheses. So when we go to graph those get parentheses. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, these are going to get square brackets. And infinity, always, no matter what, gets parentheses. So if there's no bar underneath on our inequality, then it's going to get parentheses. If there's a bar underneath, then we use our square brackets. And if we have an infinity symbol, it always gets parentheses. So we're going to graph a couple of these on our number line first before we start actually working with the inequalities and solving them. So let's graph and write this one in interval notation. And this is very easy, but students a lot of times make mistakes with these. Make sure your variable is on the left. And then let's say x is greater than or equal to 9. Okay, so we want to graph this on the number line. We want to write our answer in interval notation. So this is saying that x is greater than or equal to 9. Now here's how I remember how to graph these. I think it's the easiest way. So we've got our number 9, so we're going to put the 9 on the number line somewhere. Doesn't matter where you put it, you just put 9 on the number line. Now make sure your variable's on the left. Okay, so my variable's on the left. Look at which way it points. This inequality symbol points to the right. See? Points to the right, opens to the left, points to the right. So it points to the right, so we're going to be shading then to the right. And whenever it goes all the way to the right, it goes to infinity. Now, are we going to have square brackets or are we going to have parentheses? Well, it is x is greater than or equal to the 9. So we're going to have to use square brackets there. How do we now write our answer in interval notation? Well, in interval notation, then this would be, it comes off the number line in the same order, square bracket, 9, comma, where does it go to? Positive infinity, and infinity always gets parentheses. So they come off the number line in the exact same order. We always make sure that our variable's on the left. If it's not, we can rewrite it so that it is. And whichever way it points is the way we want to graph. Let's do another one. Same directions. Graph and write your answer in interval notation. So let's say we want to graph x is less than a -3. So we want to graph this one. What are we going to do? We want to graph it. So here's our number line. We find our negative 3 somewhere. You don't have to be super careful about where it is. You just want to find the negative 3. And what do we know? Which way is it pointing? It's pointing towards the x, pointing back to the left. So that's the way we're going to have to shade. So we're going to shade back to the left. And that goes to negative infinity. Now, what about the negative 3? Negative 3, is it going to get brackets or parentheses? If we go back up and look, remember, if there's no bar underneath, what do they get? Parentheses. If they have the equal bar underneath, what do they get? Square brackets. Ours is strictly less than, so that means we're going to be using a parentheses here. And there's our line. And which way is it going? It's going out to the left to negative infinity. Make sure you put them in the correct order. So the first one we have is at negative infinity, always with parentheses. So negative infinity with parentheses, comma negative 3, also with parentheses. And this is what's called interval notation. Let's try another one. So this is what we've got here. Now this one's a little bit different because it's on the wrong side. You always want to make sure that our x is on the left. If we have to rewrite it, then we got to make sure it goes the correct way. So let's rewrite this with our x on the left. Now, which way is it going? Look at the way it's opening, okay? It's opening towards the x here. See how it's opening towards the x? So it has to be opening towards the x over here. And then 5 is here. So it still points towards the 5, opens towards the x. All I did was I just flipped them around. And why did I do that? Well, I did that so that my x is on the left. It's just easier if you do that. You have to flip them around. You flip your sign as well. Notice the symbol flipped, right? Because we flipped the order, we flipped the symbol also. What does this look like on our number line? Here's our 5. My x is on the left. Which way does it point? Okay. X is on the left. It's pointing to the right. So that means we're going to go ahead and shade to the right. Greater than or equal to. So that means we get a square bracket. And it goes to the right. Whenever it goes out to the right, what does it go out to? Positive infinity. So what would this look like in interval notation? Now make sure you use the correct order. Bring them right off the number line. So 5 with the square bracket, comma, infinity with the parentheses. Very important that you do not mix up the order. Okay, so make sure you put them in the right order. You always graph it first, and then they go right straight to interval notation in the same order. You don't want to mix them up because then they would not be correct. You want to make sure you put them in the right order. What about a 3-part inequality? So now we're going to graph this one. Okay, this one's a 3-part. X is going to be trapped in the middle. So how would we graph this one? Well, this one has 2 numbers, okay, and it's already in the right order. So here we are with a -3 and a 9. And what do we have? We want it to be in between them. So we're going to be shading in here, inside. X is trapped between them. Now we need to make sure we know what gets what. Well, the -3, it's less than or equal to, so it has the square bracket. The 9 is the strictly less than, so it gets parentheses. What does it now look like in interval notation? Directly from our number line, we have square bracket -3. And where does it go to? 9 within what? 9 within parentheses. So these are not difficult at all to work through. When we solve them, they're no more difficult. We just need to remember one thing and one special rule when we go to solve these, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. But let's now go ahead and solve some of these. So these we're going to have to be moving things around. So we're going to go ahead and graph these again and write our answer in interval notation. So let's start off with a really simple one here. Let's do a fraction one. How about 3/4 x minus 5 is less than or equal to 10. When we solve these, we need to think about that inequality symbol as like and equal. So it's going to be solved the same way. So we're going to try and solve these the same way that we solved an inequality. So we're going to solve the same way that we solve an equality. If this was an equality, we would clear out our fractions. So the first thing we would do is we would multiply it by 4. It's going to clear out our fractions here. So let's go ahead and multiply everything by our 4. If I multiply it all by 4, then what do I get? Those cancel. That leaves you with a 3x. 4 times a -5, that's a -20. Don't forget the right-hand side, which is then your 40. Now we want to go ahead and finish this out. So we're going to add the 20. And we now have 3x is less than or equal to 60. Divide by our 3. And x is now less than or equal to 20. So is everyone okay with what we did there? We cleared our fractions. We moved that 20 over with addition. We took that 60 divided by 3 and we got our 20. Now, the only new step versus an equality is we have to graph it. So here's our 20. Our x is on the left. Okay, which way is it pointing? It's pointing to the left, so we're going to have to shade back to the left. It's less than or equal to, so it gets a square bracket. And where does it go to? It goes to -infinity. It goes to the left, it goes to -infinity. And that is then -infinity with parentheses to 20 with square brackets. And this would be your answer. Some of these may just want the graph. Some of them may want interval notation. This is what's called interval notation. That's what that piece is. So that's your interval notation. Try another one. So again, we're going to graph this one just the same as we did before. We're going to graph it and write our answer in interval notation. Okay, and I set this one up on purpose to illustrate a new concept here. So the first thing we do, distribute through our parentheses. Nothing new, just like we would at any other equation. This is just an inequality, so we distributed that through, and that gives you 5x plus 20 minus 8 is less than or equal to 7x plus 4. Before we move things around, what do? We combine. So that's 5x, and then 20 minus 8, that's a 12. And now we're going to move things around. So I'm going to move that 7x over. Now we've got a minus 2x plus 12 is less than or equal to 4. We're going to move that 12 over with subtraction. And now we have a minus 2x is less than or equal to negative 8. This is where I'm going to show you an extra thing you have to remember with inequalities. Okay, now, with equations, we would just divide and we would be done. But in an inequality, when we divide, and we're going to have to divide by a negative 2, when you divide by a negative, that's going to make that inequality flip. So when you divide by a negative 2, that flips your inequality. So when dividing by a negative, flip the inequality. So when we divide by a negative at the very end, this doesn't happen until the very last step. When we divide by a negative number, that's going to make our inequality symbol flip. So the x stays positive because negative and negative here makes it a positive x. We divided by this negative 2, so that forces the inequality symbol to flip. Negative and negative makes it a positive 4. The way I remember is when I divided by a negative 2, I changed my sign, right? You change your sign, change the inequality symbol, or flip it. So when you divide by a negative, the only new extra step is you have to flip that inequality symbol. On a number line, we've got our 4. And which way does it point? AX is on the left, which is what we want. It's pointing to the right. So that means we're going to shade to the right. It is greater than or equal to, so that means we'll need a square bracket here. It's going out to the right. When it goes out to the right, what does it go to? Positive infinity. And what does that look like now? In interval notation. Well, it looks like square bracket 4, comma, infinity. Make sure they come off the number line in the exact same order. Let's do a couple more, and then we'll look at our 3-part inequalities. Let's try another one that has fractions in it, just for a good review about how fractions work. So how about 5/4 times 3x minus 7 is less than, how about 3/2 times x plus 1/4. I picked this one just with the fractions, and they're going to be easy fractions to work with. I picked ones that'll be easy to clear out. We've done these before with equations, right? You just distribute through first, and then when we clear our fractions. So let's go ahead and distribute this through first on both of these. Now, how do we distribute through? Well, when we distribute through, remember we multiply. So 5 times 3. Okay, 5 times 3, that makes it a 15x over 4. We just put it over 4, because this is over 1 here, right? This is over 1. So 5 times 3 is your 15. 4 times 1 is the 4 down there. X just goes on the top. Then we have a minus. Okay, 5 times the 7. 5 times 7 is a 35. 4 times 1 is a 4 down below. Inequality symbol stays the same. What do we have here? 3x over 2. And what about the next piece? Okay, 3 times 1, that's 3. 2 times 4, that makes it an 8. Is everyone okay with how I distributed those through, right? Put it over 1 if you need to. 5 times 3 is 15. 4 times 1 is the 4. That's why this one is 15 over 4. 5 times a negative 7 is a negative 35. What's down below? The 4. 3 times x is a 3x. What's down below? The 2. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 4 makes it an 8. Now, how do we finish this? We need to clear our fractions. And we look at our fractions, and I made this one easy to clear. To clear these out, we need to multiply everything by what? Can someone tell me? To clear out the fractions, what am I going to have to multiply it all by? Yep, 8 will work, right? Because 8's going to go into that 4, and 8 goes into the 2. So now I'm going to multiply all of this by 8. How does it work? When we clear our fractions, what do? Divide by the number down below, multiply by the number on the top. Divide, multiply. So 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 15, 2 times 15 makes it 30x. Next, we've got 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is a 2, and 2 times 35 makes it a 70. Inequality symbol never changes until the end. 8 divided by 2. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 times 3 makes it then 12x. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 1 times 3 makes it the 3 there. Now what are we going to do? Well, now we're going to go ahead and solve this. We want to get all the x's on the left. So I'm going to move that 12x over with subtraction. And I think we've done enough of these now that we can do 2 steps at once. So I'm going to move the 12x over. I'm going to get rid of the 70 by adding it as well. Okay, so we can do 2 steps at once. We've done a whole bunch of these. Hopefully we're up to the level now where we can do 2 steps at once. So the 12 went over. The 70 was negative, so it went over as well. 30 minus 12. Well, 30 minus that 12, that makes it an 18x. The 70's cancel. The 12x's cancel. Inequality symbol's the same. 70 plus 3, that makes it a 73. Now we can finish it by dividing by an 18. Are we going to flip our inequality symbol? No. Why not? We only flip the symbol when we divide by a negative. We're dividing by a positive 18, so it stays the same. That's not going to reduce down any more. So that leaves you then as x is less than 73 over 18. What would that look like on the number line? Well, on the number line, we've got our 73 over 18. X is on the left. It's pointing to the left, so we have to shade to the left. It's strictly less than, so we use parentheses. And which way does it go? Out to the left. When it goes out to the left, where is it going? It's going to negative infinity. So what would my answer look like? Negative infinity with parentheses. Where does it go? It goes to 73 over 18, also with parentheses. So that would be your final finished answer in graphical form and also in interval notation. Let's do one more of these where we have to flip our inequality symbol. Then we'll look at three-part inequalities. We'll take a break, come back, finish up this section, and look at our practice exam. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at here. So what are we going to do? Well, just like we always do, parentheses go first. Make sure when you distribute that negative 3 through that you remember it's negative. So I'm going to circle it. I'm going to distribute it through. Because remember it's negative, so I always like to circle that negative so I don't make a mistake. So negative 3 times x, that makes it a minus 3x. Negative 3 times positive 9 makes it a minus 27. And we've got the minus 5x. On the other side, what do we have? 4x. And then 4 times a negative 7, well, that makes it a minus 28. And a plus 9. Is everyone okay with what I'm doing here? All I did was I distributed through. Where do students make a mistake? If you make a mistake, it'll be right here with this negative, because you'll forget to switch your signs. So make sure you circle it, draw your arrows, so you know you have to switch the signs. Now we combine, and minus 3x and minus 5x, that makes it a minus 8x, minus 27. On the right-hand side, we have a 4x. And we have a minus 28 plus 9. That should then make it, what, a minus 19, I believe. So we've got 28 minus 9. Yep, that makes it a minus 19. Okay, now, we could do this in 2 steps or just 1. We've done a lot with the 2 steps. Let's try to do it in 1 step. If I was going to do it in 1 step, what would I do? Move the 4x over with subtraction. And what about the 27? Does that belong on the left-hand side? No. So how do I get rid of the 27? It's negative, so what do I have to do? Add it. You can do it in 2 steps if you want. We've done it enough now that I think I can do it in just 1 on the overhead here. But you move things over. Now, what's going to happen when I do that? Minus 8 minus 4 makes it minus 12x. Inequality symbol stays the same. 27's cancel, 4x's cancel, and 27 minus 19. Okay, 27 minus 19, that makes it a positive 8, doesn't it? Because you've got 27, yep, minus 19. That leaves you with that 8 there. Now, what are we going to have to do? Divide by what? a negative 12. When we divide by a negative 12, what does that do? Flips the symbol. So that's going to have to flip because we divided by a negative. So we're going to flip that since we divided by a negative. Flipping them around, that gives you an X. Flip your inequality symbol. And reduce this fraction down. You want to make sure you reduce. 8 over 12. It's negative, right? Because the bottom number is negative. 8 over 12, what does that reduce down to? Well, these both have a 4 in common, right? Okay, so if I use a 4 in common in both of these, what's it going to reduce down to? Okay, that's going to reduce down to then minus 2 over what? 3, isn't it? Right? Because both of those have a 4 in them. 8's got a 4 in it. 12's got a 4 in it. We did flip our inequality symbol, right? So make sure you notice that. We flipped that symbol. Notice how this got flipped. What does that now look like on the number line? X is on the left, which it should be. You always want to make sure it's on the left. We're going to find our minus 2/3. It's pointing to the right, so that means we shade out to the right, just like this. X is greater than or equal to, so we're going to have to use a square bracket. We're going to go out to the right, and when it goes out to the right, it goes to positive infinity there. And what does that now look like in terms of interval notation? Minus 2/3 with the square bracket, and where does it go to? Positive infinity. There is your answer in interval notation. Now let's try a few of these that are 3-part inequalities. And again, same directions. We're going to graph them and write our answers in interval notation. And we'll start off with a very, very easy one here. What's our goal going to be? Well, where's the X at? X is in the middle. We want to make sure that X gets by itself. Now it's in the middle. So whatever we do in the middle, we have to do to the outer sides, both sides. So that 5 is a negative. I want to move it over. So what am I going to do? Add 5. Now when I add 5 to get rid of it, I have to add it to both the other sides. Now what's going to happen here? Minus 4 plus 5, that makes it a 1. X is in the middle still. 6 and 5 makes it 11. Number line. Make sure they're in the correct order. 1 is smaller than 11, so we know we're on the right track. Here's our 1. Here's our 11. We're going to shade in between. Now, what gets what? Well, the 1 is going to get parentheses, and the 11 gets the square bracket. In interval notation, what does it now look like? Parentheses 1, comma 11 with a square bracket. Let's do a couple more, and then we'll take a break. So let's do maybe 3 more of these. We'll do one we have to flip the symbols around as well. So let's look at this one next. we want to go ahead and solve this one out. What do we need to do? Well, we need to go ahead first and distribute through. Or not distribute through, get rid of that 8. And how do we get rid of that 8? Well, to get rid of that 8, what are we going to do? Right now it's a negative 8, so how do we get rid of a negative? Make it positive. So we're going to add 8 to each side. And that leaves you then with a positive 6. 4x is in the middle. And 8 and 5 makes it then 13. We need to get rid of the 4 in front of the x in the middle. So we're going to divide by 4. And we need to reduce it down if we can. So reduce down each piece if you can. So 6 over 4. Well, those both have a 2 in common. So that's going to be 3 over 2. The 4's canceled. That leaves you with an x in the middle. And 13 over 4 is not going to reduce down, so it stays the same. Almost done. Draw your number line. We've got 3 over 2, 13 over 4. It's always in between, always in the middle. Square brackets on both sides. What's our answer look like? In interval notation, square bracket, 3 halves, comma, 13 fourths, also with a square bracket. Everyone all right with that so far? Now we're going to look at 2 more where we flip the inequality symbols. And when do we flip them? We flip them when we divide by a negative. We didn't have to flip this one because we divided by what? Positive. When you divide by positive, nothing changes. When you divide by a negative, you flip your symbol because you're changing the sign. When you change the signs, flip the symbol. So the next 2 are going to make us flip the symbols and the order. Same directions again. We're going to try and graph. First thing we do, move the 1 over. Nothing new. Five minus 1 makes it a 4. We've got a minus 3x in the middle. And we've got a 19. Now what's next? Well, the next step, divide by a negative 3. Since you're dividing by a negative, these symbols get flipped. So x is in the middle. Flip your symbols. 4/3. Negative's down below, so it comes up. So that's a minus 4/3. It comes up. Negative 19 over 3. Now we have to be careful because look at these. These are in the opposite order on the number line. So when we use the number line, we're going to have to flip them as well. Right, flipped our symbol. We also flip the numbers on the number line. Remember how they go. 19 over 3 is smaller than that minus 4 over 3. So we have to flip them around because we flip the order of the inequality. So we have to flip the numbers on the number line as well. Right? This is smaller, so it's on the left. What do we do again? Graph in the middle. Make sure we know what gets what. Minus 4/3. It gets square brackets. 19 over 3, negative 19 over 3, what does it get? Parentheses. So what's our answer look like? Parentheses 19 over 3, comma, minus 4 over 3. Make sure they're in the correct order. If you flip your inequality symbol, you've got to flip the order on the line as well. One more, and then we'll take a short break.
You said the negative 3, the 19 over negative 3, that flips over, so when the 19 is negative 19?
Okay, yep. When we divided by the negative 3 here, and I rewrote it, that negative just came up to the top here. Okay, and same thing here. This negative, it came up to the top. So that's where that negative 19 over 3 went. Now, when we put these on the number line, remember, here's your 0 here, way over here. We want to make sure that they are in the correct order. We had to flip our symbols. And which one's smaller? Negative 19 over 3 or negative 4/3? Well, negative 19 over 3 is a bigger negative number, so it needs to go further to the left. The 4/3 minus 4/3 is smaller negative number, so it goes on the right. So you have to flip the order around as well. Does that make sense now? So you flip the inequalities and you flip the order on the number line. Only time we have to flip them is when we what? Divide by a negative for the last step. So it's only that last step where we have to do that. We'll do one more here. So we're going to solve this one out and graph this inequality. So what do we do first? Move that 1 over. We've got negative 1. We've got our inequality symbol. We've got a minus 2x in the middle. 5 minus 1 makes it 4. Now what do we do? The next step is we're going to divide by that negative 2. We are dividing by a negative 2. When we divide by a negative, what does that do to my inequality? It flips them. What does that do to the order on the number line? Flips them as well. So negative and negative makes it a positive 1/2. Flip your symbol, x. Flip your symbol. 4 divided by negative 2. That's a negative 2. Now you can see why we have to put them in the opposite order. Which one's smaller? Positive 1/2 or negative 2? Negative 2 is a smaller number, so that's why it's going to go on the left. 1/2 is the larger one, so it goes to the right. We want to shade in between these and make sure we are careful about what gets what. The 1/2, it has the bar underneath, so the 1/2 gets square brackets. The negative 2 gets parentheses. So now what does my answer look like in interval notation? Well, in interval notation, it looks like parentheses negative 2, comma, 1/2 with square brackets. Okay, so minus 2 gets parentheses, 1/2 gets square brackets. We're going to now go ahead and take a short break, and so we'll meet back here at, let's say, how about meet back here at 10:35. And then we're going to finish up this section. There's not much left. And then we'll review for our exam next week.